righty. Boom, 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 boom. We are live. What up, traders? What up, investors? Ken here from Dyslexic Investor. And thank you for tuning in for a fantastic live stream. Excuse me, here on a Thursday evening. A lot of things have happened. The NASDAQ has been a hell of a downfall lately. Seeing a little bit of recovery potentially coming in today. Not out of the water yet. We're still in a very aggressive downward pull. We're going to definitely have fun. Look at some stocks, look at some stuff that's going on in the market, and just have a grand old time. Hopefully you brought a beverage. I brought myself some coffee. Look, we had some early person. We had John, Jason, and then we have Ryan. What's up, Ryan? How you doing, my friend? A couple things that hit me after the close today was the old Disney didn't have the greatest expectations for this to go flying, but this thing has really been beaten down here a little bit. Again, people are kind of looking at that multiple. They have, I think, what is it? Can I see it on here? Their PE. Where is that? I think it was like 60 something. Price to earnings ratio is at 68 forward PE. Like, it's a little bit hot right now. Like it's got a little bit close to the sun. It's clearly going to be breaking this trend and potentially coming into the 200 EMA here on the daily side. So it's going to be potentially looking for some short-term support around 165. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch there as well. If we do see that pullback, that would be a pretty significant pullback if we do hit that level. Initially, we've already broken past the 89 EMA. We're looking for the 144, which is also kind of coming into line at this previous move here. We can kind of dive into and look at some Fibonacci retracements of what we could be looking at. We can do at previous swing highs to lows to highs. We can do other technical charts here. We can do the 1272. Basically, after running multiple of these scenarios, the support is coming in around 170 to 165, which is kind of lining up, with those EMAs there. Another one, yes, Ryan, Tesla has been, it hasn't been a fun one, okay? Elon Musk did a fantastic job, of course, on SNL and so forth. But we have a Fibonacci sequence here on this previous extension. So the swing high from the high of 900 to the previous low here in the trend, and then the next move high, we are coming into some significant support here. Again, I'm not making up these numbers. These are Fibonacci sequences. That 618, we missed it. What the low for today was around 59.84. We have support initially around 55.57. That is, again, you're seeing in the last week and a half a very aggressive action to the downside. Very heavy selling. But the thing that is kind of strange, we're seeing the selling in downward motion, but we're not seeing a spike up in volume. So so it's not really like you could see a spike on multiple things on sense of like capitulation. So a great example would be that when the Tesla was added into the S&P 500, we had, look at this amazing volume. Of course, if you don't remember, when Tesla was added to S&P 500, all the institutional funds that run on merit or run with the proxy of having or competing with the S&P 500 as their benchmark had to add the Tesla stock into their portfolios. You can see here that huge chunk of volume, and it really didn't do anything. It was more like a trampoline or like a stoppage of any kind of up or down. But then it's kind of like a delayed reaction that really kind of came through and really boosted it higher because of it. At the same note, I always like to look at this chart on a daily or weekly basis. We're coming into some of that level here. If we really highlight this below level here in volume, we've been trending below average volume for quite some time. And has not really stagnated away from those those frames or those time frames, and seeing some positive notion come through here. At the same time, again, Tesla has, again, last year was very hard to compare to this year, because last year was honestly a mind-boggling crazy returns for a lot of stocks. So it's going to be very hard to kind of compare these runs that we saw in Tesla last year in 2020 to what potentially we could be seeing coming this year here. So just be very well aware that this is not going to be something that's just going to turn around and go to $1,000 in the next week or so. You have to be a little bit more patient than that. Ryan's asking for car. Is that Avis? Avis budget rentals. Yeah. Is this you're saying that it's a short idea? Just a little. I'm drinking out of my Disney coffee mug to feel my little sorrows of Disney going down on earnings, which is all fine, long-term holds, but that's anyways. Car, Avis budget. Yeah, this thing very much. Yeah, you're very right on this one, Ryan. It could easily be a short. So when I look at something like parabolic like this, we want to be mindful of the weekly chart, like what the previous trend was. Okay. The trend is potentially breaking here. So if we start seeing it close on the weekly side below $73, or AKA the 8 EMA here, because you're seeing here since basically the beginning of 2021, it's been a very much of a rocket ship here, Ryan. And it's just been taking off at a very aggressive pace here, and not even closing below the 5 EMA here on the weekly chart. Finally, the trend has been broken. I don't know if it's going to come crashing down, but the trend is starting to show signs of weakness. What we mean by that, we have the RSI on the weekly chart here breaking down. We have the TTM squeeze going from light blue to dark blue. And the biggest component that I like to see is some key levels. So from the previous swing high to low, we hit that 618 around $81, which is insane. We're talking about a car company here. And we hit that 618, which is a very significant level. So I think you're probably on the right track. I'm gonna have to look at where's my pen and paper at, on how that can potentially play in the market, or how the options contracts work. Car, and then I just do a down arrow for a short, or I just write puts or something, sell calls or something against it. But yeah, like again, it has broken on the weekly chart. If we go to the daily chart, it's kind of hitting that 50 SMA here, which is that red line. Again, a lot of people look at that on the sense of they look at the 50 SMA as being like the staple for a lot of growth stocks. We start seeing it break above that or below that, that could be also a trend change there. That being said here, if we do start seeing it close below that, that could be coinciding with the 8 EMA on the weekly chart. So just depending on what your time horizon is on seeing that break, we are seeing the 5 and 8 moving averages crossing through the 21 EMA. You already see that short really happened right above the that 618 extension we talked about. Again, this is the daily chart here around 81. So the trend is potentially taking a break. It hasn't really shown the first sign of crumbling yet, but if we start seeing it crumble, start closing below 75 or to 73, we can easily potentially see this kind of slowly grind lower, or have a drop of any kind of some bad news or competition in the market, or the scarcity of rental cars just disappears overnight, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the future, right? That we could see it drop to $70 to $65. So that's something that could be something in the deck of cards. So to kind of look on that assumption. So if you're like, I'm looking for something that could potentially happen the next 60 days, And I think it has earnings. Is it already had earnings, right? So in the next 60 days or 64 days, they're expecting a move of nearly $16 plus or minus. That's pretty substantial here. Again, this thing is pretty high. It's been very parabolic. So most likely it could run higher, but probability speaking, with some of the beatdown notions here, it could just kind of trade sideways for some time before any kind of movement from that. Mr. Rim says, do you mind going over TTCFM and MU when you get a chance? Thanks, mate. Yeah, for sure. Let's take a looky-loo at TTCF. That's Tattoo Chef. Yeah, this one was very much, I wouldn't put it in the whole sense of as a pandemic play, but the frozen food section, making it really fresh, very accessible. We talked about this multiple times on some of the live streams when it was kind of going hot, where I was a little bit, I had a short position on it actually around this area up here around the 26-25. And I was making comments of like, I'm seeing no one buy it at Costco. Not saying that's the holy grail of everything, but I know I go to Costco at least once a week, so I know on who and what's buying people and things like in that sense. And it's very important. Like again, I didn't have any people in my very close circle who are ranting and raving about Tattoo Chef. It's a fantastic product. I love their cauliflower rice. Don't get me wrong. And their bowls, I've tried their bowls, were really good. But this is the same sense of the stock got a little bit ahead of what the company's doing. We saw here some significant pressure around that $25 level. We just saw, it looks like it just had earnings coming out. That trend is still going sideways to down here, and just continues to kind of slowly meander down to this level here. We have some very initial short-term support around $16.50 to around $16. If we start seeing that break, we can easily make our way to that previous low around 14. That could be a potential double bottom here. But as you can see here in the last month and a half, we're seeing significant pressure on the 21 EMA. We have not been able to kind of puncture and close above that. So not being able to see that those candles get above those moving averages, and even just try to potentially, this is potentially a short-term bottom here. And I'll highlight that for you, my friend. Basically here, if it can kind of stay in this box, maybe build a base and maybe start making its way to try to break above 18 and kind of start like slendering out these moving averages, we maybe can get a nice little jump higher. But again, I don't know the full fundamental story behind it, but as of right now, it looks like it, for me, would potentially just kind of trade sideways or continue to kind of slowly go down until it starts finding some buyers. Because again, we did see a lot of buyers come in here in mid-month of last month in April, but it has somewhat recovered here, and we'll see if we can get some more buying pressure and some holding power within that stock there. And then MU, yeah, a lot of the chips have seen some selling pressure coming in. Of course, MU, we saw it break below that 82.29 level. Once it broke, that was just kind of like the last straw on the camel's back, and it's now kind of coming here lower here, breaking out of that trend here, which we've had this box here. Basically, let's like get it that way, and it has broken to the downside. So it's still in the pressure to the downside. In the short term, again, this is not considered a base in my book, around that 144 EMA, aka around that 78 to 50 level. This is something that I want to be a little bit careful about on just buying this full hand over fist and putting your whole account into. I want to maybe start nibbling on it, because again, this thing has also been super parabolic. We're seeing here in the short term, the 5, 8, and 21 are very aggressively pulling down here. So it's going to need a little bit of time to recover here. If we don't hold around that 77-ish to 78 level, we can easily see it maybe meander down to around 73 to 74. To get this back into the trend, we need to see it back above that 82 plus dollar level there. Wesley, what's up, my dude? Ken, thoughts on IPOE? They're about to merge with SoFi. Yes. Yeah, they don't have a date yet. Again, the sad thing with this one, Wesley, I think we've talked about this a couple times. is the sense of, sadly, IPOE has got caught up in the whole SPAC attack, SPAC mania, SPAC scams, and all that stuff. Even though I think SoFi is a fantastic company, and their book and their products are superior, I believe, to what Robinhood can do, on the sense of they just offer more, a book of business. They have more loans. Again, Robinhood is very minute on just like trading, investing, and some other stuff like this. The sad thing with IPOE, it's just been so hot, and it's just kind of been meandering here a little bit, which is okay. It's not crazily going down. We're seeing significant support come in around that $15 range. Again, that $15 to around $14.50, we have seen some support there. I like to see this at least hold, so we'll see on once that gets moved into the newer ticker. Sometimes we'll see some selling coming in. Previously with those SPAC moves, where people just kind of get sick of it, and we have that little maybe 5 to 10% jump up once it moves over to the new ticker, and then people just kind of forget about it. I think that this one is definitely a great opportunity, and I have shares in it, so that tells you that. But it has been a high flyer, so there could be some paper hands coming here soon if once that merger gets acquired. Alpaca, what's up, my dude? John, yep. Ryan's looking for MNDM. Yeah, that's been kind of holding that $3 range, which we talked about multiple times. Again, you know what that is, Ryan? That's the 89 EMA here, that beautiful Tiffany blue teal line there that I call it, the 89 EMA here, is coming into some support here. If this does not hold, we can easily see this sink back down to like 250. So that's my only fault on that one, because again, this one is super speculative, though. I think most people understand that, though. It's super speculative, and you have to be very careful about it, because again, it's something that is completely brand new in the market, and it's trying to do new things. But with doing new things comes with potential great rewards, but at the same time, some downside. Let's see here. Roland One, what's up, my dude? It's Put City. John says, I just moved to a remote beach town to a metro. I just moved from a remote beach town to a metropolitan area and just used Instacart 3 times so far. I have some mobility issues. Somewhat an awesome company, in my opinion. Might invest. DoorDash did well today. Yeah, Dash did do well today. This is something that I was short over here, but it has kind of come back here a little bit. It has jumped up quite substantially here. So if we go into the smaller time frame, it has brought around 125. So that would kind of put it back up to that falling 8 EMA here. We are seeing, again, very negative pressure here. So I always forget. So this was an IPO, so you have to be very mindful on lockup dates on this one. It's usually around 6 months normally, when the first batch of people can sell. So you have to be like careful on that one. To my fault, if I don't, the DoorDash business, I know a lot of restaurant people complain about the fees they take. They do a service for some folks. And clearly, you're, like you said, you have mobility issues, and it's a godsend for you. But the economics of it, some people are adamantly against it, on just the cost and being the middleman in that scenario, which I kind of somewhat agree with. But it is a service and people use it, so it's in that sense. On the fundamental story, that's where I'm sticking. On the chart side, pretty strong quarter. Let's see if it can continue to flourish and move from that level. It, again, in the short term, that this is a very aggressive downward move. Like when that NASDAQ started selling off, Dash just said, you know what, we're going to dash to selling as well. And they just really kind of took off here. Again, a lot of volume coming today, so potentially that is an all-time low for the stock. Normally, I like to wait at least 3 to 4 quarters before I buy something like a newer company or a newer IPO like this. You can kind of saw the same scenario with Uber. You had to wait multiple quarters before you really got that reward going through. But Uber has not been a fun ride for me as well. But Godspeed on that one, my friend. And Instacart is fantastic service as well. You're welcome, Wesley. Brian's asking for crisp. Oh yeah, another one. This is a Kathy Woodstock too, right? Again, you have to remember 2020 was a flippin' honestly. What's a scenario? What's something I can say? Opinion like a 2020. If you are trading in the next if you're still trading and investing in the next 5 years, you're gonna be looking back in 2020. You're like, holy shit, why did I not invest more money in that year and then sell? That's what a lot of people are gonna be thinking. I think in 5 years, 2020, that run from the summer or really the fall into the winter and then early 2021 was fantastic. Like it was absolutely insane. Like the amount of returns, the amount of money that was made, crazy. Stocks just went up that time, literally. Sadly, that's not always the case, especially hitting the seasonable trends in the summertime where we just see some chop here and we potentially could see some bulls rally into the late summer into early fall. As of right now, a lot of these growth stocks, especially with the inflation and the Fed potentially having to stop QE and potentially having to raise interest rates sooner than they thought, it's just kind of making growth stocks go kind of crazy and trying to look for a hole. We'll see on how this can continue. Again, this was clearly the fundamental story was pretty sound, but the stock just got way ahead of itself and a lot of FOMO kicked in without a doubt. This thing definitely has been crippling here. We are finding some resistance potentially around the 104 level, but if that breaks, we're going to be saying hello kitty to around 90 to even the $76 level. Again, with these pharmaceutical gene editing stocks, it's very difficult to see on how that plays out. Gomez, Airbnb, yeah, Airbnb, same kind of scenario. Just like we talked with Dash, I think it's a fantastic business. Sadly, it has got a little bit ahead of itself, like a lot of stocks. Because again, you're gonna see this a lot on repeat of like there was a lot of FOMO in 2020 and early this year, like ridiculous. It's insane on how much FOMO there was in the market. There is something really interesting to see here. It's very much seeing it kind of come into roast. Like finally, the value investors and people are like, oh, it's valuations are nowhere clear, nowhere in line where value investors are looking for, but a lot of these growth names have been really cut in half here. We're touching with the potential lows here in Airbnb. This is something that's going to be very hard to place on like a fundamental like analysis, because if we go to the analyze tab, their PE is not very high, but at the same time, which it doesn't make money yet. Like it's still running and operating at a loss, and we just went through a pandemic, and they still made it out. So that's honestly a good check mark there. They're in the hotel and hospitality business, kind of more on the travel side of business, and they made it out. So that's good. They survived. Let's just see on how they can perform the next 6 to 12 months on how those quarters return, and if we're really going to see people taking more vacations, which I'm on the camp where I think people will. I think people will be doing more staycations in the United States since the restrictions and so forth are pretty strict still in Europe and Asia places and so forth. So it's going to be a lot of people are going to be renting Airbnbs most likely. But on the stock, very aggressive downward trend here. So that 140 level is going to be a pretty strong line in the sand here. We saw some bounces coming in here. Of course, we've seen that close below that. We'll see on how that works out on the weekly chart here, because again, we'll see on how this overall notion plays out. Because again, this is a pretty much beat down here. And again, something you have to be very well aware about on these newer IPO stocks is on was Airbnb? I don't know. Was Airbnb an IPO or was it a direct listing? So if it was a direct listing, people can sell that day. If it was an IPO, they had to have a little bit of further lockout date. You're welcome, John Jacobs. Yeah, Wesley did hit hard. A lot of stocks got hit hard the last couple of days. I lost a lot in the past days. It's coming back though. Yeah, John, I don't know what your time horizon is on investing. Like, I'm always been somewhat of a longer term investor, so everything will work its way out. Yeah, I'm down 20% overall. It sucks. Yeah, I feel the pain. Definitely, the last couple days have been very painful. Ryan saying ENPH is cheap. Energy company, yeah. So full disclosure, I own XLE just to be more of a boomer kind of trade there for me, and I own the stock and leaps in that one. Not sure what the whole story on this one is. This has to do with the Texas stuff. The price to earnings ratio is 200%, 200 points. Wait, that doesn't make sense. I gotta double check that formula down there. This thing was a absolute monster here. Like, this thing was 65 cents a couple years ago, and it has just gone nothing but continues to run higher here. What is this company again? Infinite is a provider of energy management solution that's engaged in design, development, and manufacturing, selling microinverter systems for solar. Okay, the solar industry and semiconductor-based and system converts direct current DC electronics. Okay. So very much new age kind of energy kind of company. Fantastic. Sadly, that has been beat down. You see this on the weekly chart. You saw on the weekly chart it was trying to hold that 150 range, but it broke past that, and now we're seeing potentially it fall here. We are not seeing any support coming in around 125 currently on the weekly chart. We're looking for that support potentially around 125 to 120. Not a base at all. We're seeing after earnings it was very much of a downward turn, so we'll see if this can hold anything at this point here around 120 to around 125 there. Ryan says is hey, oh wow, HYLN. Wow. This is like the, I don't know how this company's doing worse than Nikola. Like on the I don't know. Okay, sorry. On the chart looks worse than Nikola's. So this one has just definitely been very much hit. It's again EV, new age, kind of getting in the commercial trucking industry, kind of cutting down cost, moving into moving out of the combustional engine, and they want to get into the hydrogen models and so forth. Just very beat down, and you can just see here this trend continue just to trickle down here like a slow bunny sled team here. This is just the bobsled just continue to slowly just roll and skate the way down the hill here. This is not a fun notion here. It looks like it did have earnings. Did it have earnings? It looks like it did have earnings, but I don't see anything posted here. Yeah, I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, Tesla got really beaten down today, and Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin definitely did get its stomach punched in here a little bit. So with Bitcoin, you know, we love that 89 EMA here, which is again around that like $48,000 range, 48,800. We're seeing it potentially bounce here. If we do see it start breaking below that, we can easily see it run to 45 to 42,000. But to get this back into Notion here and maybe get that move to kick higher here, we need to start seeing it back above $52,000. Johnny, nothing wrong with that. I added about 5 to 6 shares of Tesla the other day around 575, and I just added one today just for good measures, just because. Nothing wrong with being a small fish. Small fish grow big. Mr. Ram says Disney, they've reported, and it looks like a leg down, looking to open a leap here, or looking cheap, in my opinion. Yeah, I think Disney just has so much that they can just rely on. I haven't looked at the full report. I had to listen to the call completely yet, but this is something I'm going to be listening to tonight. This is something to look out for, because again, yeah, it did leg lower here. Went down to 168 was the lowest tick by here, but now it's kind of holding around 170 to 171 here. Very much just beaten down here. We're looking for some initial support to stay above that 171 range, which would kind of hold that 144 EMA. This is, I wouldn't say it was suspected, but it was in the deck of cards, because again, this thing has been very hot here on the last 2 quarters, gapping up quite substantially here. Not the last 2 quarters, but I'm sorry, these 2 quarters over here during the whole lockdowns and other things, where they were outperforming, putting out great numbers in the sense of who, sad with their parks and everything being closed, they're still able to make a decent amount of money in the sense of having folks with their streaming service. So they're going to have their fingers, their hands in every cookie jar, from entertainment to movies to theme parks, cruise lines, travel, hotels, all that stuff. So sadly, they do have some weight they have potentially kind of holding them down on some slower growing stuff like ESPN. They were thinking that was going to be a little bit better. But yeah, we'll see on how this one plays out. Long-term investor here, so sad that I see it down here a little bit, but I'm not going to let that shake me. But for leaps, yeah, I would love to add some leaps here potentially to this. I would go out to at least 2022 plus to 2023 and see what those prices are doing out there. But definitely I'll have to see on how that plays out tomorrow. Vic K is asking, please look at Fastly. Yeah, Fastly has been in the whole box of the 2020 stocks that were really moving with the stay-at-home plays. Fastly was really much tied to the TikTok trade, where TikTok was potentially going to be bought, sold, and moved around, and all that fun shenanigan stuff that went crazy with that. And the chart really represents that. Like, it literally looks like a polygraph of someone lying, because it just kind of jumps up and down, just very scattered. No really conceivable trend here. Again, with earnings, they missed back. This thing was $136. Okay, now it's back down to 40. Okay, that's insane, right? If we look at the weekly chart, look at that move. If we see this red candle continue, I think we can easily see this break 40 and make its way to even lower to around 30, and maybe making its way back down to lower mid-20s if we can continue seeing this scene here. I don't know the fundamental story behind this, but when I see large red candles like this, that is not a good fun thing to have. Large red candles scare the Hello Kitty out of me. And this is just something very dangerous, which I talk about a lot when I look at the NASDAQ or the S&P 500. When I see large red candles like this, you maybe get a bounce once or two, maybe a long-term short base here, but this is not a fun thing to look at here when it dropped from basically in 1 week from basically 70 all the way down to $41 in less than like 2 weeks. That's not a good look. Ryan says, "Hello, Ken. Right, Helion versus Nikola. Who will be under $1 first?" Sadly, I think Helion would be under $1 before Nikola, but Nikola probably deserves it more. Ba-ba-do-ba-do. I like PCRFEY. What? Panasonic. Huh. Yeah, that's yeah, very much breaking the trend here and continue going lower here, not really with any sign. Again, if you're on the long-term side, we have to go to like the weekly chart here. We are finding some support here around $11. If that holds $11 and maybe builds a base here, you can maybe see that support come through here. But if we do not see that support come through here, that can easily kind of, excuse me, tear through that and start breaking below 10 to 1050 there. You got stuck on Fastly. I'm sorry to hear that. Definitely, time will tell on how Nicola looks. So let's take a quick look at the old Nicola times. Very much is kind of trading lower here. Just it honestly looks so much similar to Helion of just seeing that huge boost higher and then just kind of trade lower. I remember when this thing came on my radar, I bought it in fairly low here and then ran it up just a little bit, honestly. Nothing nowhere near to $90. Like again, you never know on how high these will go. That's when I got my beak wet with the SPAC stuff. And that's when things really went cray cray. Yeah, NIO is another one that a lot of people have been asking about as well. This one, again, huge run up. Every single person loved it, talked about it. But once the growth phase and the honeymoon phase ends, guess what? You're going to be stuck with a Chinese swapping company, a charging company. And you have to understand, is that what you want? You want to be exposure to that? You want Nikola? Do you want Tesla? Do you want CCIV? Do you want Lucid? Whatever. Like, you're gonna have to make the bet on what you choose to marry here. Not saying you have to marry your stock, but you have to understand if you want to be investing in this on a long-term basis, you kind of have to know your stuff and understand on what the company's doing, how they're making money, what's the it's not going to be just worried about what's the total addressable market. Yeah, there's like 7 billion people in the world, but how many people are going to be buying an EV? First of all, how many people are going to be buying an electronic car, and how many people are going to be buying a Chinese electronic car? Like, not saying times can't change, but there's currently no companies right now that we're buying in the United States or in Europe that are Chinese cars, right? So this is kind of like it's going to be. They have a lot of work ahead of them. If they can do it, fantastic. Kudos to them. I'm I'm speaking my own book. I'm a Tesla long bull. Would hope NIO can make it and turn the corner. They have got a loan which they paid off from the Chinese government, but we'll see how this one plays out. Again, there was some stuff that the Chinese emissions or sales company came out saying that Tesla sales were down in April by 27%. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. We have to see until the quarter comes out for Tesla to get those accurate numbers from that. So I don't really trust any of that data, to be quite honest with you. In that sense, with NIO, that move that we're seeing here, very much beat down here. We are breaking below the 200 EMA here, so around $36. We have broken below that, heading to unknown territory. So we potentially could see some short-term support coming around 30, which we saw that previous breakout here. But looking here to the weekly chart, most likely going to be heading to below 30 and heading to potentially the next magnet around $25 to $26. DT. Yeah, a little bit of a choppy trend here. So we did this one kind of came on my radar here. Basically, was it March of this year, but just too choppy here, coming into potentially that short-term support around $45 of 44. Weekly chart looks okay, not significantly lower like we've seen in a lot of other trends here. Um, Looking for this level here on 42.60-ish to hold, but that is a very sharp downturn in a very short period of time. So we need to kind of potentially have a base here, and this is where you can slowly accumulate some shares, whatever you want to do here. But if it starts breaking below some trend lines between 42.60 to basically that 41.50 range, we could see potentially some downside coming to below 40 there, the downside. What's my view on Baba? Ooh, they got ripped. They got ripped. Sadly, I remember how much people love this company. We're all over it. I don't I don't know the full story on the fundamental side, to be there honestly, my friend. But just the understanding on what the power of the Chinese government had over this on ripping the Ant IPO out of their hands, basically uh, uh, um, taking the cojones off of Jack Mong and basically isolating or whatever is happening over there, and he's just hiding on his own will or what's going on. The story's unclear. A lot of people have a lot of unanswered questions. Fantastic, whatever. But the company has suffered significantly. There's a lot of rumors. This is just rumors I've heard of the Chinese just redirecting and moving things of having other people use the other various suppliers in China outside of Alibaba, and basically kind of redirecting there and giving them more incentives to be the number one, and just really showing that their strength more than anything. With that note, that 205 has been a little bit of support here. That was the initial first move to the breakout here. In that note here, if we do this again, we're looking on the weekly chart here though. So if we do see that break lower here around the 205, we're going to be looking for some support around 200. And if it starts breaking below 200, we could be in for a pretty interesting ride here. We can do some potential short-term analysis here on the fib jumps here. We're seeing again the 207 is some initial support, so 207.50. We'll see how this rest of the week it closes. That move here, but like we talked about, that 200 to 189 level could be another level to the downside support, downside resistance there, because this thing has failing here on trying to get any kind of momentum, to get any kind of steam, to kind of break out of this somewhat of a downward pressuring trend that we're seeing here in this stock here. Ryan's pins, oh yeah, pins has slapped me pretty hard in the face here. Very heavy growth stock that was fantastic last year, and now kind of coming to roost and seeing some negative pressure. Broke past the 200 EMA. Sadly, had to take some losses on this one in the short term. We'll see if my long-term stock does okay, because I kind of added that at a lower base, I think sub 40, I believe. But not a fun thing to see after earnings, and to see continue to decline for the next 2.5 weeks here again. Not just the NASDAQ pushing it lower, but just everything just kind of been going against it, of just being like, oh, it's a 2020 stock. This is never going to be coming back, blah, blah, blah. This has not been a fun one to trade, even though I think I got a little bit too close to it, and I got a little bit too emotional about this one. But yeah, this thing has really kind of came back and kicked me in the cojones. So yeah, 59 to $60 level has been broken here. If we continue to grind lower here, we're seeing that 5 and 8 moving averages just not giving a rat's ass. Just continue to grind lower and lower and lower and lower. Just not fun, right? Next one is this Costco. You know your boy. So normally, I love my Costco. We hit that previous high around 388. and then bounced off it pretty hard. But where do we bounce back to? We hit that 21 EMA here. So initially speaking here, we want to see if this trend can hold in the short term around 370 to 372. Again, this is a very long-term investment for me, so this is just fine. In that note, we'll see this one potentially try to come back up here. This can easily come back down to 367 to 260 here. If I want to get into it, are you still in it? Are you talking about pins, Ryan? I'm still in pins. I had to get out of the calls. The calls were killing me. They met my 25% down draw on the position, so I had to cut it on options. The stock, I'm still okay. I'm up just a little bit, but nothing where I was, and I think I should have potentially trimmed it more on the higher 65 this range, which I didn't. I was just, again, I got a little bit too emotional with it, just like I did with DraftKings last year, which was one of my largest losses. Yeah, still in pins with some a little bit tiny bit of stock. I have to double check though. That's not in this account. We'll see, but I probably have to cut it, honestly. Just want to rip that band-aid off. Get rid of that pain. But yeah, I love my Costco. I did want to talk about some of the overall the industries, like the NASDAQ. So the QQQ, we talked about this one, I believe, yesterday. I posted in the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, link in the description down below, folks. We talked about some initial short-term support coming around 317 and stronger support coming in around 312 to 310. If we do see that negative selling continue going from there. We're not out of the water. We're still seeing significant chop here in the market here. We are below the 89 EMA. We're well below the 50 SMA here as well. The short-term moving averages are very aggressively pointing down here. So this is just something I very hesitant to say we are in chop mode. The NASDAQ has definitely been beaten down here. We just hit an all-time high like less than a week and a half ago, and now we're basically down on what? It's almost like 5% now, right? I think it's 5%. So 7.5%. So if we wanted to fall significantly more to below 10, we need to hit like that 307 to 308. That would be a 10% pullback in the NASDAQ. This is somewhat healthy here. It's okay, 7% pullback. I know it sounds like a lot. It's better than a 30% pullback, right? Numbers. Still sucks, don't get me wrong, but this is somewhat what the market gods give us sometimes. Like, you have to roll with the punches there. So we'll see on how this one continues here. What do you think about NRZ downtrend, but the book value is at 1135? The market can NRZ. That sounds familiar. What is that? Yes. So this is like a REIT, right? I like it. I like how beaten down it is. I really like that, honestly. I like beaten down things, and then find the value in it. That being said, here, the trend is fine. It's just kind of slowly meandering its way up here. Excuse me. On the weekly chart here, the daily chart here, it's coming into some support here around $9.90 here. Basically the higher nines to basically $10.30 is some pretty significant support level here in the short term. But if you start seeing some negative pressure and start closing below that 975 to 980 here, we can maybe see it slowly make its way back down to lower 950s to even the $9 range. Again, I'm not 100% sure what's in this basket and what's in this pot cooking here, so I would have to understand more of the fundamental story. But the chart as well it has literally been beaten down from the pandemic, and it's slowly making its way back here. How low do you think DraftKings will go? So yeah, D King was one of my biggest losers last year. That being said, here, I think we can do some quick fib work. So we can do the Fibonacci extensions here. So that's from the previous swing high to the next previous high here. We can find some resistance around 45 to 37.30 here. We can do some other levels here. So this is going to get a little bit messy here. And this is, you can do this work yourself and then kind of figure things out here. So it's kind of lining up at these same ranges here. Let me see here. Let me do this mother trucker. And so the 38.2 is kind of, so basically we're potentially looking if this can hold around 42.30 to basically that 41-ish range and kind of end the week at that level here. That would look pretty juicy here. At the same note, this is very significant pullback here. That's a lot of selling pressure coming in here. That is a lot of folks just saying, F it. I don't think sports betting is worth it. Again, the stock was heavily moved of last year due to reopening sports arenas, being more of that stay-at-home kind of play scenario. With that note, this stock does have a very significant V-shaped recovery mentality. Like we saw this move here, we saw this move here, kind of this move here. Look at this move here. That's fantastic. I know Kathy Wood, ARK Investment, has been buying this one, I believe. But yeah, this is very significant downward pull here. I have to tie you to the weekly chart here. We're finding potentially that some support here around the 200 EMA here on the weekly side. So maybe not, but I need to kind of see this stop selling off here and kind of base here a little bit. But going back to that V-shaped recovery and that notion here, this thing could easily bounce significantly higher. So depending on what your time horizon is on that. VUZ. Oh yeah, the 3D. Yeah, this is what happens when a stock goes parabolic, and then or parabolic, FOMO, all those fun terms here, and then everyone just says F it, and it just kind of just falls out of the sky here. When especially with growth names falling out of favor, everyone just kind of takes the retraction and just kind of heads back into their shelters. So on that note, basically, again, the NASDAQ, the overall growth stocks have been hit pretty significantly here the last week and a half or so. Very intuitive to the stock here. Again, my honestly belief on this one, Ryan, is that the stock just got way too far ahead of the company's fundamental story here. Like we saw with so many names, I can just continue to say with SENS, BNGO, Nikola, all these things have just got, the stocks just go completely parabolic, completely FOMO, with no rhyme or reasons behind it. But there will be that one day where it has to come into roost, mostly around earnings or some kind of significant data where they have to prove of like, okay, you have to earn X amount of revenue or X amount of profit to really deserve this the stock price. And when people don't see that potential growth in the next year or two, and that's when things get hit like this. What's my thoughts for Fastly's long term? Yeah, we kind of talked about that one on the weekly chart here. So weekly chart, I don't know the full makeup of the fundamental story for Fastly, but on the weekly chart, I don't want to be touching it with a 10-foot pole because of this big red candle right here. I need to see it base out here. If this does not hold around that $40 range for at least 4 to 6 or 7 weeks, we can easily see this dip back to around that 35-ish range. So we'll see on how this one plays out. Brian says PayPal looks juicy. PayPal is always juicy. I own PayPal. Yeah, It's a little bit not as beat down as some of the other growth stocks, because again, it's honestly like I consider the bank of the future in the sense of so many people just using Venmo, PayPal accounts, and that's where my love and my stuff goes for FOMO for SoFi, on what they're able to do for them. Like SoFi's got so many things. Like I don't want to just talk about SoFi, but have you seen on their product page like on what they offer? Like it's absolutely insane. Like it's crazy. Like they all their products. These are all home products. They have personal loans, home improvement loans, credit card consolidations. They have the new IPO investing, which I need to check that out. They have all that kind of student loan stuff. So this is where I never took out student loans, but I know a lot of people who have, and yeah, a lot of people need student loans, especially private loans and mortgages. Okay, like they have so many things in their repertoire here. Like it's mind-boggling, and they're really, I believe, positioning themselves for the future. So, um, I will probably be opening up an account with them just to kind of see on how um, it rolls with that. But yeah, my wife did have a student loan with them, so a little bit familiar in that sense. Yeah, I like them a lot with especially with PayPal here. We are seeing some significant support here on that 144 EMA here. So this one as well has hit that 1618 here around that $300 level and kind of retreated from that. But again, that also falls into that February timeframe where everything was pretty heavily isolated to the upside. On the weekly side, look at this son of a gun. Um, I'm a little bit worried here, so you have to be very mindful of like, hey, we start breaking below that 34 EMA here in the weekly side, which is around 230. This thing can easily fall to 220 to even that lower 215 range in a heartbeat if we do see some selling pressure come within that range there. So be very careful on that, because again, this thing has been have a monstrous run here as well. Because on the weekly chart as well, we're seeing the Chaikin money flow, which is kind of a weird gauge to kind of look at sometimes, but we are potentially kind of coming into not a dip here, but looking. I'm honestly going to be looking for maybe potentially selling some premium here, depending on how the Nasdaq closes out tomorrow on Friday. We'll see how that one plays out. Alrighty, I think that was a lot of fun for folks. I know it was kind of like an impromptu live stream. I hope this was educational for some folks. I am trying to do some more videos for you folks. I want to get more into kind of helping people understand options trading and more just the way of just investing, not just YOLOing things. But I did have a Wall Street bets one I wanted to do, which I'm probably still going to do because they're just a lot of fun, to be quite honest. And just talking about how some people just got gangbusters lucky. Logitech, yes, Ryan, that has also been one that I've been having and following ever since the pandemic. I think we got into this one around like the 60s, right? Well, even below that. I got this one around like 59, $50 to $60 range, and really rode that move up pretty substantially here, kind of selling here a little bit on the way up here. The trend still looks pretty darn gosh good here on the weekly side here, around that 21 to 34 EMA here for a little bit more longer term horizon if you have that. Around that 97-ish level to potentially see some support coming in. So 97 to around 94 could be some support here, but if we see some of that negative pressure coming in and start closing below basically 95 here, we can easily see it tip below 90 there. How is Apple setting up for the short term? Yeah, we can take a looky-loo at Apple. I think that 123 in the short term. So the short term for me is going to be at least 35 to 40 days. So we're looking for, yeah, we've talked about that 144 EMA here coming in for support here. Since Apple's like the largest tech company known to man here, you have to, it basically trades on its own there. That 144 EMA here lines up around that 123 to higher 123 levels here. So in the short term, that's going to be your level of support here, around 123.76 to be precise here. If we see it tick higher here or tick lower here, we're going to be looking for that for support here as well. If it does break lower substantially here, we're potentially looking for that 120 to 119 to find that support there. And then to the upside, we want to be breaking above 127 to around that 128.50 to kind of see that movement to kind of come back into that, getting it back above at least the 50 SMA, which is around that 127 level. Thoughts on CRSR? Yep, another high flyer that is really getting somewhat not as much smacked around as I thought it would. Again, gaming was huge. Last year, again, was a huge run for the stock here. Going public here, going from 15 all the way to $51 here. And then ever since then has been kind of trading sideways and slightly kind of just treading water here and just taking on water here potentially. The initial support to the short-term side is going to be some support around $29.90. We start closing below that, we can easily see it break below that to heading to 28.30 to even to the 27.50 range in the short term. But if some ghastly news comes out or some very negative, this thing can easily drop to 25 to 28.89. Sorry, 22.89 here. But on the positive side, if you look here, it has not gotten above this range here. So it has not been able to get above $34 or 34, basically that $34 range. So that's be significant resistance to the upside here. We've seen it kind of meander and bounce off that 200 EMA a couple times here. We'll see if that can continue to be the support there, and maybe get some jet fuel in this, and get some Red Bull, and kind of get it, the bulls to come in to kind of pop this one higher here. But again, that $34 level, if it does pop, we're looking for that to potentially hit that the higher 33s to $34 level. But if we do see significant movement here, since it already had earnings here, we're going to be trying to look for that new test to try to break above that 35.60, which are currently where the parabolic SAR dots are lying there. But in term, really looking for that 37.30 to potentially see that significant movement higher to that range in that movement there. Some stocks that are kind of on my radar here is still Love. This is Southwest Airlines. This is one that I talked about on Sunday. Of course, pretty significant pullback in the last couple days here. We're seeing it kind of hold its own here a little bit. So we're kind of letting it, trying to stay above that $59.50 here. Hopefully, we'll see if the trend can push us higher to at least that $61 to $62 range. If we do see that any bounce or any kind of positive notion there. Sadly, Disney is one that is going to be. We sold some premium on it for earnings, but it was significant lower where it did trade. So we'll just collect that premium on that one. But with Disney, this thing has had a hell of a recovery here. So we're seeing it kind of break the trend here on the weekly side. So we're looking at, if it does continue going lower, we want it to hold at least to stay above 170 here in the weekly side, to kind of see if this can kind of hold that trend here. If we do not see that 170 hold and start seeing it trade below that, we could see 165, even a push back down to 160 with the old Disney. A lot of people haven't been talking about this one, is Yeti. So Yeti, if you don't know it, the thermos outdoorsy kind of cooler company. Beautiful sideways action here. Finally broke out here, hitting $90. I think if we can see this positive notion with strong earnings coming back, it looks like it did trade down to $85 in after hours trading. So nothing too significant there. It looks like it's fairly wide though. But if we can get that notion, I think that this could potentially hit that 94 range here if we do get some more positive notion on that level there. Those are just a couple ones that I'm looking at, that some stocks that I'm looking at there in the short term. What was the other one I was just looking at? Oh, WBA Walgreens, like are in the pharmaceutical convenience store kind of company here. I like this one as well, holding here around $53 here. If we can continue to see this hold here, I think we can easily see this boost at least to 55, 6, so 50, $56 to potentially $60 in the next short term, in the next like potentially 6 to 10 weeks here. So 6 to 10 weeks would kind of put us in here around this range here. So we're looking for at least a move of $6 or $7 here in the near future. This would be a little bit more conservative here. I think I have stock of this one, not with options yet. So we'll see how this one plays out. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have any further questions, I'm gonna go finish my coffee and probably watch Big Bang Theory reruns or something with my wife. We might watch Billions. Well, I'm gonna ask her if she wants to watch Billions. Guys, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. If you have any comments, questions, please join the Discord. Ping me directly, and I'll try to give you the best reply and give you some my honest replies and answers from that. Again, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this live stream, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.